Hello, I am Eugene Sandulenka. I am the project co-lead of ScumVM. It's a program which lets you run certain point-and-click adventures and RPGs. And you can listen to this interview with the SimWorld podcast.
Hey, it's this thing. It's a podcast that I'm in, and so is he.
Hello.
Hi. In a minute, it's Ross Scott and Stop Killing Games.
Exactly, yes. He's
Before
the one that, spoke about it publicly a lot of times, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, before that, though, we're just going to talk a little bit about things that are happening in the world today.
Right. Yeah, well, should we start with a German game pioneer, Hans Eppisch?
Sure.
Releases his book about his journey in the industry from C64 to VR worlds. It's in German, and it's from, it can be ordered from the Look Behind You store. And yeah, well,
does he talk about it in television?
I have no idea. I mean, it's getting released on the 18th of October, so I can't tell you yet.
Okay.
Yep. And on the same day, also October 18th, Settlers 2 is released for the Amiga.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Not this Amiga, because this is not an AGA Amiga, but Amiga.
Well, it does work on native Amigas if you have an accelerator card.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It's this is an ECS. It doesn't have the advanced graphics of like the 1200 and the 4000 had like the.
Okay.
It wasn't as advanced as they wanted to make it, but it was just kind of like here's some more colors.
So how do you want to review it when you receive a physical copy?
Got an emulator.
Okay.
I got UAE on here. I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, and apart from that, Arcade and Love Songs, the Walter Day movie, is getting a movie premiere event on Thursdays, the 20th of November.
No shit. Really?
Yes. In Marshalltown, USA.
Okay, but if you're going to talk about that, you need to specify where Marshalltown is in the United States. What's the movie called again? Walter Day.
Music it's called Arcade and Love
Songs. Marshalltown.
Exactly. Yeah.
Iowa. It's in Iowa.
Right. I just copied the info from the newsletter. So.
Yeah. It's in Iowa, so that's kind of. I guess that's Midwest. No, that's not mid. That's Mideast. That's like.
Yeah.
It's
happening between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that two shows? No, I guess it's one showing.
Right. It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
That's and now we stay in the realms of retro, and after 39 years, new Mario minus level was discovered in Super Mario Bros. For the NES.
What?
Yeah, new levels.
They discovered hidden levels in the original Super Mario Brothers.
Yes. Exactly, that's what I said.
That's a new one on me.
Yep. I'm sending you the video link so you can.
After 39 years, new levels discovered.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I just said. Yeah.
Huh. Oh, wait. This is from Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels.
Yes, so the Japanese release.
Right, so not the original Super Mario Brothers.
No, the Japanese release.
It's the actual. It is Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan.
Exactly.
And
but
for
in
us,
America, it was released in Lost Levels. Yeah.
Right. Okay, but it's not. They didn't find it in the original Super Mario Brothers.
Exactly. The first time the Lost Levels was released was actually as including game with Super Mario All Stars.
Right.
The collection where they did a remaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. Interesting.
And well, also new Deus Ex Remastered has been released.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it hasn't been released. It will be. It has been announced. It will be released in February. So that's going down February next year.
Oh, all right.
Yes. And also, Sonic Racing Crossworlds has been released by Sega.
Okay.
Yeah. So you see, a lot of shit is going down before Christmas. Yeah. And those are basically my news.
All right. I got nothing.
Well, then that's a quick one.
I was reading through it, like looking at what the big news items are, and I guess the one thing I can say is that VCF Midwest happened.
Right.
And there are now videos online of it that you can go and check out. We don't have any at the moment, but other people have put up lots of videos. So
right. Don't forget to send me, proper link descriptions.
I don't have links to any of it. They're all just look on YouTube. Do a YouTube search for VCF Midwest.
Right.
That's
well, VCF SoCal has been announced for 2026. So the Dieterichs were quite successful and announced they will continue doing it the next year. So. And we had an interview with John Shaden about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can link to that at least.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, most of the news I see here is like just stuff that, I'm looking. There's YouTube videos out, and it's like testing a Commodore 128D fan upgrade, and it's like what? Like this is news now. Like everybody put a fan in their 128D. That's just what you did back then. I don't know why that's news today. But yeah, it's,
that's yeah.
So then let's go and talk about not killing games.
Exactly. Stop killing games. Exactly.
Yeah.
Pew pew. So today we have another guest, and today we have Ross Scott, who is the starter of the initiative Stop Killing Games, and I'm very happy that we have him here today. So thanks for coming, and welcome to the show.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, the initiative stopped at least the chance to vote as an EU member stopped July 31st, but I think we still have a lot to talk about. I've read that the movement actually started in 2024, so you have been doing this since a while.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should tell people what Stop Killing Games is.
Right.
Yeah.
Perhaps start also with what made you starting it and what was your entry into video games. I mean, you didn't pop out of nowhere suddenly.
Yeah. Right? Okay, well, I guess my entry into video games, I guess kind of a blurry memory. I mean, I remember seeing them as a kid and liked them. So, I guess the first ones I played were Commodore 64 ones, and then, Nintendo at friends' houses, that sort of thing. And I basically didn't stop liking them is what happened. So, the Stop Killing Games movement is something I founded last year, where the problem that's always bothered me the most above everything in video games is the business practice of when companies sell a copy of a game to you, then at an undisclosed time, they later disable it, and then that game's bricked. You can never run it again. Usually. I mean, sometimes there's exceptions, but, and that, in my opinion, I think that's destroyed more games than any other practice. And the industry's only promising to bring more of that. And it's a preventable practice. It's just, I consider it negligence is the main reason it even happens, because there are reasons for some games to connect only to the publisher in order to work. But the problem is, the vast majority of the time, there's no end-of-life plan associated that once they inevitably have to end support, and that's when the games get destroyed. So the movement, Stop Killing Games, is a lot of things, but it mostly involved using a test case to report it to consumer protection agencies because, believe it or not, despite this practice having gone on, I guess, arguably a couple decades, it's never really been tested legally in multiple countries. Companies just kind of did it, and there wasn't significant pushback, and government usually doesn't get involved with video games unless it has a reason to, and it just kind of went along this way. So I figure, well, if the industry is gonna keep destroying games, I at least wanted to make sure if this is even legal or not. But the other big thing that we did was multiple direct petitions to government, with the biggest one being the European Citizens Initiative, which has recently ended, or the opportunity for people to sign it has recently ended. And so it's highly likely this is going to go to before the EU Commission to get discussed there, and basically brought before regulators to decide if the law needs to be amended or changed on this. Or maybe we'll find out there if what's going on is legal. It could just be they decide not to pass new law, but then start to enforce an existing law. We'll see.
But my question was, before we were interrupted, where are you operating out of? Because I tried to figure it out. I was thinking America, no, then you wouldn't do it. Then you wouldn't be kind of spokesperson for EU initiative, right? So it must be from somewhere else.
Well, I am American, but I live in Poland. I am not.
Poland, okay.
Yeah, but okay. My wife's Polish, and
I see.
So moved. I didn't have much keeping me in the United States at the time, so decided to move. Right, and it worked out.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That also explains why when we were negotiating the time to meet, you actually were mentioning kind of you were in the same time zone. I was like, really? That now it makes sense. Okay. Interesting.
I should mention though, yeah. I'm not actually the founder of the initiative. Right. The initiative is different from the movement. It's for sure the movement supports the initiative as much as it can, but I'm ineligible because I'm not a citizen. I need to learn a lot more Polish first. But I coordinated with a lot of people who were helping that did help start it and get it going. So I'm not the official spokesperson. I'm just kind of a major promoter for it. I guess you could say it like I'm an unofficial spokesperson for it, but not the main one. Right. I won't be the one discussing this in Brussels before the commission.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, I saw your video where you kind of explained it actually, because I figured some game industry voices were actually criticizing you, claiming you were. So that is why you made this video, putting records straight, kind of, right?
Well, yeah, a couple of weeks ago we had a claim of a violation in how this was being run, and it was baseless. They just made up stuff and guessed that we were doing it incorrectly, and we weren't. But it shows that this was like a week and a half after, maybe even less actually, after a major lobbying group came out and made a statement against the initiative, because the industry is fighting this, though. I think it's petty what they're doing, because this is not. Yeah, I guess that's a couple of things I should mention. This initiative that we're pushing for, the way it's set up in the EU is they're not retroactive. So even if this were to pass, if a game is already shut down before then, it would be completely unaffected, because the law doesn't work backwards that way. And the other thing is, this does not need to be an enormous cost to the industry if it's planned for new games moving forward. It's just another aspect of game design, which already has hundreds, when you're making a new game. So the cost of this can be, I think it would vary depending on the game, but I think it would be relatively minimal in the short term, and it could be negligent in the long term, where once there's already established solutions and software and middleware that's all compatible with having an end-of-life plan. Plus, most games would already be compliant. If when the publisher ends support, it's still possible to run the game without having to connect to a publisher's server, it's already compliant, and this isn't an issue. It's just, we're seeing more and more games kind of adopt this system that does make them at risk for being destroyed, essentially.
Right. Interesting also is, I had the experience myself that there are actually corner cases where you can get the game to run still even after its lifetime, despite it's looking for an online server, but only if you know how.
Yeah, there's a few like that, but what's a little more common, surprisingly, is sometimes when a game gets shut down, it's such a popular game or has such devoted fans that they'll try and reverse engineer a server emulator for it, which almost always takes years to pull off without documentation or help or something like that. So occasionally, despite the odds, they do come back. But yeah, actually, we did an analysis of all the games that do get shut down, and we found out it was actually a lot higher than I thought. About 3 or 4% of the time, the developer does something to keep it up if it had an online-only game. If it was an online-only game that got shut down, it was about, I guess a little over 25% or 28%, something around there, where fans managed to reverse engineer something and get it back up that way, and the rest were just gone forever, pretty much. So.
Interestingly, I've read that the crew was the starting point for you to think about it.
Well, no, I've been thinking about this for decades and trying to act on it for about a decade, but to no avail. The reason the crew had significance is that was a game we used that was separate from the initiative, where that was a prominent game published by Ubisoft, which is located in France, which meant they're subject to all kinds of consumer protection laws. And it was an online-only game. It got shut down, became completely unplayable for anyone on the planet, essentially. Though there is a server emulator being worked on, so hopefully it'll come back. But that meant it was an excellent case to submit to consumer protection agencies. Before this, there have been other. It's like there were multiple boxes to check. You wanted a game where the parent company was in the EU, and so it almost had to be Ubisoft in a way. But another one was that it needed to be a fairly popular game, because if there was only a handful of people that played it, then among my audience, there might only be a couple people that could submit complaints to a consumer agency, and that wouldn't get their attention. But the crew had up to 12 million players total. So that meant there were still thousands of people, even among my audience, that had a proof of purchase they could send to a consumer protection agency to examine this and see if it's legal or not. And the third thing we wanted was, that's what I call a clean kill. In other words, the entire game was shut down, not just the multiplayer or not just DLC or some features. The whole thing became unplayable. So that meant that any regulator looking at this who might not know anything about video games, they could understand this pretty clearly without having to get into all sorts of nuance to it that might undermine the case or something like that. So it was an almost perfect candidate for this.
If I may speak out of my own experience, I was also one of those victims because I didn't finish playing the game. I couldn't because the server was shut down too fast for me. But there are also some cases which I don't understand how they even happened. I mean, let's be very specific here for 1 second. When EA switched from Origin to EA, this new app to manage your games, I actually bought a license from the EA store for Need for Speed Shift. And despite I bought the license officially from EA 5 minutes ago, it asked for authentication server to connect to that didn't exist anymore. So despite I had a license on my PC that I bought 5 minutes ago from the official store, so not delisted, that's a different case, I still had to get a no CD patch so I could write the license that I bought to the registry of Windows so the game would recognize that it has been activated. So then I guess they never really, when they went from physical to digital, they never really cared about removing those registration server systems.
Did you ever try contacting their support on that, or?
No, I mean, I didn't have to because
I mean, if you have the patch, obviously, but I'm just curious. I mean, it could be that that was just misconfigured and that they could fix it, but I don't know. Or they could just be selling games that don't work for anyone. It's...
Yeah, the special thing with Origin compared to Steam, GOG, and so on is...
You mean EA?
EA
Origin,
app.
Origin
as an aside, the EA app, the game store from EA is nonsense. I have a Mac, and it updated to EA from Origin. And I couldn't figure out why my battery was dying so quick. It's because the store runs in the background and keeps your discrete GPU running it the whole time.
Oh wow!
It won't go back to the integrated. So even when you're running on battery, it's using like the big GPU in there. And I had to end up deleting the little demon that runs in the back.
I'm almost imagining if they're bundling in a low-level cryptocurrency miner into the...
Probably, yeah, something.
Well, my EA app story is, ever since it updated, I've been unable to log in at all, period.
Okay.
So, but I'm a little bit behind on some updates, but the thing is, I'm assuming if I were to just do a completely clean install, I could get back in, but I haven't tested it yet because I have a minimum of games on there, so it's not urgent for me, but I eventually plan to try to get it working again. But I had thought, but I lost it. But yeah, it's shut me out. Oh yeah, that was it. Technically, when it happened, it said it also supports Windows 7, and I'm on Windows 10 still. So I'm thinking, well, if it supports Windows 7, even if I am behind on an update, shouldn't I still be able to connect to it?
Yeah.
I mean, I would think 7 is going to be way more of a outdated thing. So I don't know what's going on with it. I mean, I tried everything, trying to get it to operate, but I'll probably eventually get around to doing a fresh install, then it'll probably work again, but still.
Interestingly, 5 days ago, the problem actually got worse because Steam decided to botch down from the payment services like PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard, and removed all adult games.
Yeah, I still don't know all the details on that, but did they delist them or did they remove them from your library if you already own them?
I mean, delist.
Yeah.
I only know one case where Steam actually got a court order removed the game. No, they actually said you can still play the games if you have them in your library. But that was wild. And then yesterday and the day before, so for 48 hours, GOG, Good Old Games, as a countermeasure, offered 13 adult games for free. So
yeah, I picked up Agony like that. I saw the news on that before it expired. I got Agony. I already had Postal 2, and I wasn't really interested in the others.
And for the listeners and watchers, we're not talking about adult games. I mean, I guess some of them.
I think the others were, but they didn't look.
Yes.
Yeah. They didn't really look like the quality level raised to what I was looking for. So.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Leisure Suit Larry or something.
Yeah,
There's a lot of production value and everything. Writing, put into the writing.
Yeah, that's actually that's actually the sad thing. In this genre, you mostly have like picture stories or something, not really games with a lot of gameplay. So.
Well, the movement is making no subjective quality assessments of the game, other than if you bought it, you paid for a copy of it, you should be entitled to retain a reasonably working copy of it. There can be a lot of nuance to it, but so the movement would have help or partially help with this situation, though. Well, if this were to happen in the future, because right now, I mean, in order for this to go through government, it's probably going to be years before we actually see the results of it. But we would not be. I guess the good news is, well, an adult game or otherwise, if you bought a copy of it, they should not be able to just remove it with a moment's notice. What I've said in a recent video is that what they would have to do, they would have the right to take away the game, but even if you paid for it, but what they would have to do is first give some reasonable notice, like let's say 30 days or something, and also give the ability to back it up somehow. So if you got an email saying, we're removing this from your library in 30 days, but you can still download it, and if you'll be able to continue running this without needing to connect to our server or something like that. It's the same issue we're focusing on, though it's like a more specific version. We're mostly focusing on games that have that you have to connect to the publisher and not the storefront in order to run them, but it's a similar issue. So, yeah, we're not requiring any company to provide endless support or endlessly host the game, but they do have to give you the ability to continue running it after they're done hosting it or supporting it, within reason. Obviously, if there's like a new update to Windows and that breaks compatibility with the game, well, then that's on the customer to figure that out at that point, So it's not like they would have to continue supporting it. But we will not be preventing delistings, because I would think the solution to that would mean you would have to require companies to continue selling a game, and that seems like it could get unrealistic or unreasonable. Obviously, nobody's happy about or very few people are happy about the games being censored and delisted off of platforms, but I think it's the sort of thing where a solution is going to emerge over time regardless, because if there's a whole bunch of customers that want to buy this and the publishers want to sell the games, then it's the payment processors getting in the way of that. I think there's probably a company right now scrambling to try to get up some alternative solution that doesn't require, the credit card companies or PayPal, and figures out some alternate way to pay for them, because they're creating a market demand essentially for whatever company can get there first.
Yeah. Now to touch back on what you just said before about like a game where the OS is updated or something, and that kind of goes back to there's one that I complain about a lot, which is Dirt 2, which is one of my favorite, racing games. And I guess they had an issue with the licensing of the music or something. The game's not available anymore. And I got it off of the Mac App Store, decades ago. But I can still go onto the Mac App Store and download that on an old machine. even though it's not listed anymore and you can't buy it, I still have it, and I can still run it. I can't run it on my current machine, but and that kind of also goes to the idea of ownership, because you'd go to a store, you get a box with a game in it, and that was your game, and you could play it. Maybe your computer would die and you can't play it anymore or whatever. Now it's more like games are being offered as services, where you don't really own them. You're allowed to use them.
Yeah, it's. I'm well versed on this nuance by this point. I guess the first thing I would say is maybe not back into the 80s or something, but for a long time, the license agreements actually haven't changed too much. Under the letter of the law, you never really own that game. What you own was the piece of plastic housing it, or the magnetic tape. But in real world terms, of course you owned it, because nobody was going to come and take it from you. You could resell it if you wanted, that sort of thing. But since the technology has made it, there's been a shift that even though these terms haven't changed, the real world practicality of it has. But the thing is, they're not, the vast majority of them, under the letter of the law, they're not really acting like services, or that's yet to be determined, because services, almost every service either tells you when they end, or there's an established expectation of when it ends. If you go to get a haircut, maybe it takes 20 minutes, maybe it takes 45 minutes, but there's a rough idea of how long it's going to be, or, it's not going to be 5 years, if you, but there's no standards whatsoever for the majority of games that require an online connection to connect to the publisher. I think the shortest we found was the Culling 2, which lasted 8 days. And, we're talking games that you pay once, so you pay for it as though it was you're buying a copy. And the longest we're aware of is Guild Wars from 2005, which has been going over 20 years. So if you bought it in 2005 and never got around to playing it, you could put the disc in, get some patches, and start playing it. So that means customers are essentially gambling with how long the purchase lasts. And especially when it comes to customer expectations, most games, the expectation is indefinitely. Like you mentioned with Dirt 2. If you still have the hardware it was designed for, or the software, and it's all kept in good working order, you can still run the game. So that's kind of the standard for most games. And even online multiplayer ones, especially from the 90s and early 2000s. And it's only that shift later that started getting chipped away, I guess.
Right.
Then we speaking about negative examples, we also should speak perhaps about positive examples. Because I figured when Disney bought Lucasfilm Games and LucasArts, they actually started reissuing delisted games on Steam. That was actually quite a surprise. So I know the initiative is not about preventing delisting games, but I wanted to say...
and with that, I feel like the Disney thing was more like they acquired this company and realized they could make a couple of bucks with these older games.
Yeah, but at the same time also relisting your own games. That has.
But again, I don't think that was necessarily an idea of let's provide support for these into the future, in as much as we can make more money.
If we relist our own games now that we have the ones from Lucasfilm Games as well.
Yeah, nostalgia is a nice drug.
Yeah, I mean we're of course in favor of more preservation, but the way I describe it, we're really just trying to stop what I call the worst of the worst, where no one on the planet can run a certain game again. With those old games, there are probably people who have them in their closets and could wheel them out with either the old hardware or emulation or something like that.
Right. And you have equated this kind of to like the silent movie era, where studios would destroy their own thing. And I was just thinking of the movie. There was recently a remake of Nosferatu, which is pretty good. And the original one, I think the only reason that we even have that is that somebody found it somewhere. Like, because they had gotten rid of all the copies. They had destroyed them all.
Yeah, there's one. You'd have to talk to a film buff about that, but as I understand, there's a lot of cases like that where the only existing copy is because somebody in the department just took it home and forgot about it, and then that ends up being the only one that survives. During the silent, as I understand it, we've lost the majority of silent films that were ever created.
Yeah,
because what they would used to do is after they played them, the studios would figure, okay, well, we're never going to use this again, and they would burn them down to get the silver content out of them, which was worth something. Right. So, yeah, I think it's a very apt analogy to what's going on. I guess the difference is there's a lot more people wanting them not to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look back at like some of the classics, like Clara Bow or Lon Chaney or whatever, most of their stuff no one's ever seen. Because, or somebody saw way back then, but no one alive today has seen it.
True. An interesting thing is, there have also been negative reactions from creators about your movement, or the movement you cater for. And that is, interestingly, somebody I've watched his YouTube as well, and since then I didn't, because his take was so alienated for me, and that's Jason Dorhall from Pirate Software. That's his YouTube channel. And when I've seen his video, his take on the topic, I was like, oh my god, man, you are so far off. You are so far off. It's incredible.
Yeah, that turned into a bit of a saga where right within days after the initiative launched, like, I guess, July 31st or August 1st, I forget. He released a video on it. Well, no, he did. He released multiple. He had multiple streams on it where he was just trashing it left and right, and then released a video on it. And then, if you looked at the view, we were gaining momentum at that point, and then it just kind of crashed after that. I mean, it's like we just couldn't get up, and it's hard to say exactly how much was because of him or not, but there was definitely a correlation that I saw. And the thing is, just one person having a problem with it, whatever. I mean, everybody has opinions, but the problem was he was the biggest voice on it, except for one other streamer. And then, like, I think the only video that had more views than his was a reaction to his video. So he was almost kind of setting the tone for the entire campaign. And he was the way I describe it is he misunderstood a lot of it, but it almost didn't matter because he hated it. Like, I think even if he did understand 100%, he might have even hated it more. And, well, I mean, maybe he does at this point, but so that was unfortunate because at that time, I've been talking to like members of European Parliament. We'd actually been talking to GOG about a possible like much bigger promotion. Later, we were talking with some fairly serious organizations or people, and I figure, if I just do a reaction video to this, that's going to kind of muddy the waters on all of this, and it might shut down opportunities for organizations that are kind of taking this more seriously, and it's not looking like a clown show between some YouTubers, fighting with each other. And not that I have a problem with that image, but I didn't want to like burn those opportunities that might have been there. The irony is they never really were there. So I guess, how long has it been now? I guess a month and a half or something like that. I decided, we were getting to the point where I realized, okay, we're not going to have more opportunities. We just haven't been able to get. Well, there are two things going on. One, I was still seeing a lot of misinformation on what we were trying to do, and it was getting frustrating because if people just hate it, okay, they hate it. They just view this whole situation differently. But if they're really against it or trying to push something else because they just don't understand what you're asking for, that was frustrating. I hated that. So as kind of a Hail Mary pass, I made a video and I as part of that video, I gave a full response, or as full as I could, because he had hours talking about it, to just the biggest points that he brought up. I was just trying to dispel all the biggest misinformation because his voice was so influential on that. And that exploded in a way I did not predict. And there's a strong argument to say that me releasing that kind of counter drama video caused a chain reaction that caused us to meet the threshold. So now the signature is going to the EU Commission. So a lot of dumb luck with it. I mean,
so he actually did you a favor in this regard.
Ironically, yes, though I didn't realize it till after the fact. I don't think anyone realized it till after the fact. Because also at the time he came down on us, his credibility online was relatively good. Like the average person was a fan. Well, not a fan of his, but like when he did come up, he was seen as kind of a sensible voice on game development and gaming rights and that sort of thing.
That's why it was so surprising.
So that means, whereas I'm relative nobody in comparison, so like I'm not a developer. I mean, I've done mapping and texture stuff and animation, but that's not the same thing as like back-end coding at all. So I didn't have the credibility on this at the time. Well, still don't really, but so it was more of an uphill battle, like kind of image-wise, because for a lot of people, this seemed to come out of nowhere. But again, through dumb luck, his credibility tanked a lot through him playing World of Warcraft, where he apparently performed poorly, but then wouldn't own up to it, and then that kind of snowballed and really kind of cracked some of his image, as I understand it. So coming in after that made it almost like just an avalanche for that, because it was kind of primed for it. That wasn't the goal, by the way. I just wanted his misunderstanding of the campaign off our back. That was just all. And what I was hoping for is, I knew that would cause some drama, and I knew it might backfire even on me. I was kind of prepared for that. But what I was hoping for is that if people understood that this perception that had been floating around was just incorrect of what it even was, like, whether you liked it or not, just this wasn't what it was, then I was hoping some big YouTubers might pick it up, which it kind of felt like we were on the cusp of before he came out on that back in previous August of last year. So I ended up overestimating how much that would help, but completely underestimated how much the drama would kind of spiral out of control from that. But I'm not complaining because it got us the signatures, even though that the goal wasn't to turn it into a drama farm, but I'm glad we got the signatures as a secondary result of that. So,
I mean, you have been interviewed by Linus Sebastian. So that's I would call a big YouTuber, right? So.
Okay, I'm blanking out. What's their handle?
Linus Media Group.
Linus
Tech Tips.
Oh yeah. Well, I was
never
a
good screwdriver.
I was never interviewed by him, but he did. Well, Linus covered us back in 2024
he covered
and supported
you. That's
it. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, well, he didn't throw it on his main channel, which would have got a lot more, but he covered it on his podcast. So no, I mean, he helped us out from last year. So yeah, no, we got a fair chunk of coverage. There were several bigger YouTubers that picked it up, but it didn't hit the gargantuan levels until a month or so ago, which we kind of needed because we needed 1 million signatures from EU citizens on the initiative.
Right. I mean, even my friends who are not into YouTube and so on, but in retro gaming, they send me messages on WhatsApp like, "Hey, did you hear about this guy and this initiative?" I was like, "Okay." So it really reached beyond the normal sphere of YouTubers and people who watch YouTubers, but also I saw it in certain German media outlets, so it actually went out there quite a lot.
Yeah, we had GameStar also interviewed us kind of early on and later too.
Right.
Yeah, actually Faz, I think. Yeah, I think the Faz one was before even the initiative, because before the initiative, I was doing the consumer protection action with the crew. So it's been just kind of a chain of things.
Right. And may I ask, are you somehow connected to the UK one? Somehow?
Yeah, it's a similar process where I'm in touch with some volunteers who help push that forward, even though I wasn't eligible. Though the UK one is much more precarious, I'd say. We also pushed this in Canada, Australia. In Germany, we did consumer protection action. We tried to get something going in Brazil with a class action lawsuit, but that kind of fell through. But it's been a similar process, just kind of connecting with people worldwide who also care about this issue. And then for those that do live in other countries and we see openings, we tried to, help them out when we could and, promote it, obviously, when it went up.
So now that the voting is over, obviously, what's the next steps for you?
Well, for me, there's going to be less and less, kind of thankfully. It's going to become more of the official organizers and the European Citizens Initiative, and becomes more about political outreach. There's a few things EU citizens can still do, or people in most European countries. For EU citizens, they can contact members of European Parliament for their country and just ask them, hey, please support this initiative. It's called the Stop Destroying Video Games initiative in the EU. And that may help later once it goes for the commission. Another thing is, through dumb luck again, I got advised by a European consumer group, the BEUC, where they recommended there's another initiative that's already passed and it's recently open for public commentary called the Digital Fairness Act. And it does not cover this issue, but it covers several similar issues. Like they're trying to put a stop to dark patterns that make it, so you accidentally buy something, or it's difficult to unsubscribe from something, or they're targeting predatory monetization in video games. So this is something so now that they're open for public commentary until October, I've been asking everyone that, kind of politely ask if this issue could be added to it, to, add a protection so that publishers can't just take away a copy of a game that you've paid for without giving you some means to continue running it once they're done with it.
So what is like the solution, like in the long term for this? Because, there's different kind of routes that it can go. You can have a publisher puts in like, a single player thing that doesn't require logging into the server. You can have fans of the game retro engineer servers for it, in which case the publisher might have to be like, okay, you can do that now. Once they kind of cut off support, like what is the preferred like way to go forward?
This is going to be a long answer. It gets complicated. What we're asking for, the thing is, there are more ideal solutions than what we're asking for, but those almost all trip over copyright law, where the initiative itself is trying to stay in its lane with consumer law, where it says that, okay, the customer was sold a copy of the game or the game license, that can't just be taken away. So what we're asking for is that once support ends, that it be a reasonably working copy. We use that, or reasonably playable. We use that language so that some aspects of some games might be impossible to preserve, like if there was like active moderators or something of it online. Well, obviously you can't have that in an unsupported game from the company. Yeah. So, I'm trying to think of where to start on all this. Okay, so that's what the initiative is asking for, because by doing that, if we were to just say, hey, we want the server binaries, or hey, we want the source code, well, then that starts running up against copyright law that says, no, you can't just ask them for that. That's their intellectual property. Mm-hmm. But by conforming to this outcome that's expected in other consumer products and services, that's kind of a way around that. Like, a way to analogy I use to explain it is if you have a stop sign, you have to stop your car at that sign. It's not telling you you have to use your regular brakes. You could use the handbrake, or you could just kind of coast to a stop. But you just have to be stopped at that stop sign. So we actually can't mandate exactly what the solution is. But one, because of the copyright issues, and two, it increases our odds of this going through because that also leaves maximum flexibility to the developer for how they want to handle it. Because, getting into another aspect of this, like you mentioned, like the fan preserve stuff, that's something that might be an option, but only if it's the EU Commission decides, okay, well, a working game is too much. Would the equivalent of repair instructions be acceptable? And that's something we would absolutely accept. But we can't start off with that because then it might get shut down on copyright. But that's
right.
But if they decided a working game or the equivalent of repair instructions, which case they give you critical documentation on how like the network protocols work and maybe release some of the source code that you need, but withhold a lot of other things, so that it gives people who do know how to program a server emulator lots to work with, so that this could happen in the span of maybe a few days or weeks as opposed to years, trying to reverse engineer it. So we would of course be acceptable to that, but the way the law is structured, it doesn't work if we go in asking for that. Yeah, that's another way to look at it. The Citizens Initiative is not like the final step before becoming a law. It's really kind of a negotiation, because what we're doing is we're saying, hey, this is a problem to the EU Commission, please solve it. And we can propose some suggested solutions, but the industry is going to come in and be against whatever we suggest, essentially. And then the EU is going to decide, okay, well, who's more in the right here? Does our side have more of a point, or maybe they do in some things, but we need to compromise on other issues? So we want to go in keep the message as simple as possible, essentially, because it's going to mutate no matter what. That's unavoidable. That's just how it works, the procedure. So if we had 10 things that we wanted, like, okay, for these types of games, you release source code. For these types of games, you have single player. Well, then they might just pick one of those and ignore the other 9 that we have. And so we want to make it difficult to dodge. Now, I think the ideal solution, which is not going to happen from us, I don't think, but maybe this could be a stepping stone towards that, would be, after a game is shut down, they're done selling it, maybe a couple years afterwards, I think the ideal solution would be to have it become public domain for that game. Just basically have abandonware just kind of fully legalized and that sort of thing. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be the ideal solution. What we're trying to do is just get it to the point where, as the game isn't destroyed in all its forms, and if you're really determined, you can find a copy of it, or jump through the hoops to get it working technically, that sort of thing. So, and the law is much more conducive to that. So, yeah, no, you mentioned the single player aspect. We're pushing for more than that, because, or offline. Because if the game was advertised as having multiplayer, well then, I imagine even for the majority of cases, having a single player mode might be as good depending on the game. Like if nobody was playing the multiplayer anyway, but they really enjoyed the single player aspect, then that would be all right. But if it's advertised as having multiplayer, then just having a single player mode or offline mode isn't really going to fulfill what the customer bought, because there are other games, the whole focus is multiplayer and they want to keep playing, like Unreal Tournament or something. It has bots, but most people are probably playing with other people, that still want to play it. For those, again, whatever the developer was most conducive to them, there's a few options. One, they could release the server software. If that was their preferred option, Another could be they could release alternate server software. Like, let's say while they were supporting it, it was meant to have maybe millions of people connected online simultaneously and have all these things for keeping server uptime and maybe potentially thousands of players. But towards end of life, let's say at any given time only 40 people were playing. Well, let's say they switched to alternate code for that, and you could just connect directly to a hosted IP address or something, and let's say it can only support 50 people or whatever was a reasonable number towards end of life. That would still be a solution that I think would be a reasonable aspect. They may choose to have a peer-to-peer hosting mode for multiplayer. Now, for games where, let's say it was kind of, I actually am not aware of an example like this, but there might be some. Well, I guess, for ones, well, okay, there are a few examples of this happen. I'm thinking like games for Windows Live, where you had a game, let's say it was fully single player. It only connected for DRM purposes, and then it would be like Need for Speed Shift that you just mentioned. Although I think that did have multiplayer. But let's say it was single player only. They just didn't keep up the DRM servers. You have a brick game. And let's say that game didn't have a crack or something. But depending on the country, maybe the crack, getting that isn't lawful or it's not possible for some platforms. For ones like that, then yes, an offline mode would be absolutely sufficient because it was just single player. The online features weren't the core aspect of the game, so that would be a solution. Now, once this gets to the EU Commission and they decide things might need to get renegotiated, we'll see what happens then. But I think hopefully that answers your question, or I can clarify.
Interesting. Yeah. So you are not against abandonware, I heard from your answer at the beginning.
Me personally, absolutely not. I think abandonware has saved thousands of titles. Like, I think there was that study by the Video Game History Foundation that showed something like 89% of games made aren't commercially available anymore. Well, abandonware is picking up the slack on all of that. But from a legal standpoint, there is, at least for most countries that I'm aware of, there is no such thing as abandonware. It's not illegal. It's just considered piracy, except it's piracy where the rights holders, by and large, don't care or don't even know that they have the rights to it.
Right.
So,
but the rough part with that is that they may not use those rights. They might not express their what they can do with those rights. But at any moment they could decide, oh wait, you're breaking our copyright.
Yeah, I think the fact that abandonware is responsible for so much of game preservation, it just kind of shows that we're in a partially broken system with copyright on this, because this isn't reasonable that, like, if you want to strictly follow the law, then 89 or 90% of all games ever made are beyond access to you, or something like that.
Right.
Well, or you have to hunt down some original copy, like on a floppy disk that now it costs $500 or euros because it's the only thing, and you just want to play the game. You're not even trying to be a collector,
Right.
And then over time, that only gets worse over time.
True. So we reported about this as well. A few weeks ago, or at least a month ago, GOG started their big preservation project. So I wonder, because you mentioned in between the lines that you had talked with them, were you responsible partly for this big initiative GOG started?
No, that was completely independent of us.
Okay. I mean, just yesterday I saw a Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3 for €1 and DOS versions. I was like, oh my god, I never even heard about the DOS versions.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I tend to be a pretty cheap gamer myself, so that always is kind of amazing. Like, if you wait long enough on most games that don't get destroyed, it's like sometimes you're getting what would have been a AAA experience just in the past, just for almost nothing. So it's great.
Yeah, yeah. It was surprising for me because in my world as a gamer, I only thought about Mortal Kombat being either an arcade game or the Mega Drive version is pretty famous, but nobody I know of talked about the DOS version. So this is like
I played the demo on DOS.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, the first one, and I wanted to play too, but it was too expensive, and I was a kid. So
well, now you can get it for cheap. I got it for cheap yesterday.
Yeah.
So
Is it like the C64 version of Street Fighter?
No.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly, those early DOS games that already had VGA, they are pretty close to the arcade version. Interestingly, so
okay.
Yeah,
so.
I guess nowadays for most games of that era, you probably would want the closest thing you can get to an arcade port because that's going to be the best version.
I mean, not everybody has an arcade machine like me in the living room, right? Right.
Yeah, but I mean, those the arcade machines were always like a generation or two ahead of whatever was at home because it was just a dedicated hardware.
Interestingly, that you mentioned abandonware is a good thing, or you even mentioned public domain. For a few months ago, we actually had Eugene Sandulenko as an interviewee, the project leader of ScumVM, and he is totally against abandonware. He said there's no such thing because it's totally illegal, and so that's interesting that the industry is kind of torn on this abandonware train.
So you could you elaborate? So he's against abandonware.
Yeah,
like, I can understand.
He said as long as it's not fully backed by law being lawful, it isn't a thing that should be supported. Despite ScumVM is one of those fighters for preservation.
Okay, well, I can understand. Maybe he's in a position where he has to be careful what he says.
That's true, because he had a big fallout with Disney, because they thought emulation is kind of robbery,
The way to look at emulation is, I feel like, on a long enough time scale, emulation becomes the only option for video game preservation. It just depends on how far along you are with the original hardware still working and the software being compatible, that sort of thing.
Right.
I mean, even copies you bought. I mean, floppy disk. They eventually lose their charge, and disk. You can have disk rot. I've actually had that happen to me on a DVD, though it was for a movie.
Oh.
But yeah, no, long enough time period, emulation's kind of the only option, I think, for preservation.
Right. Super interesting insight. Just because we have you in this interview here, one thing I wanted to mention, I really enjoyed your game reviews on your YouTube channel. Especially Test Drive 3, that was totally spot on.
Yeah.
I thought I would mention that.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. It's that one's an oddity because for the time that we're talking an open world driving. Yeah, what was that? 1990 or something. That those were not common then. So there's definitely a fascination to it, and you really can kind of explore in it. But at the same time, the frame rate's really rough for a driving game, and the steering's delayed, and
I just thought it was interesting because when I saw that, I was like, okay, this man knows what he's talking about. You are really deep into the topic. So
well, not always, but I'm going in there. I'm trying to.
Right.
That's a way to look at it.
Right. Interesting.
I'm not making things up. Like whatever I'm saying there, I believe it's real at the time. So.
Yeah, that's actually a problem of many young YouTubers that they sometimes dreams things up, and I'm like, how did that happen? You know. But well, that's a different problem. Knowledge will also go away with people getting older and youngsters coming up. Not everybody knows everything.
Yeah, actually, not to make it all about the initiative, but that's I feel like this is like a window of opportunity that we had on this. Like if this had been a few more years, I think younger gamers especially, they're so used to this that it just seems silly or alien to be asking to be able to keep the game. Like it's just from their perspective, a lot of them think that's just not how things work. Whereas we're probably all old enough to know better, you know.
So. You know, it's like those YouTubers, those hardware YouTubers who are younger and are doing those fix PCs series, like asking the viewers to send in PCs that are broken. And one of the first things they are doing is replacing cases and removing the optical drive. And I'm like, no, the person might need it still, you know?
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, yes, but especially if it's somebody who is using it, you're right. If it's for a customer, especially an older one, yeah, you can't do that. You know, on that note, on my main system, I actually did take out my optical drive because I use it so infrequently, but I have a secondary one where I thought I was kind of done with it because on all my old discs, I mean, I had to jettison a lot of them when I moved to Poland because I could only take what I could keep on the airplane. So I made disc images of just like everything. I just left it with a friend. I mean, I still have a handful of them, but or rip the audio tracks for like Redbook stuff. So I thought I was getting kind of close to done with needing them, but then for preservation, I learned about what they're called Millennium discs, where they're these Blu-rays that are designed to, well, they're claiming 100 years or more. Obviously, you can't test that, but there was this article where some guy burned some stuff to it and then just left it outside in the weather for like 6 months or 9 months, like to the sun, like even freezing temperatures, and then like tested it afterwards. And after he cleaned it all up, it worked. So I'm thinking, if you're kind of paranoid about preserving some stuff, that might be one of the better affordable options right now. So I've had a few discs I burned to that. I'm thinking, well, shoot, now I need that. I'm going to need to get you need special burners to get them, but they're relatively affordable. So now I need an optical drive back in there again. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then comes Microsoft with Flight Simulator, you know? Like, you're welcome with 7 discs or whatever, you know? So there are still some rare cases where you can get a physical games.
I'm gonna point out that if anybody does a search for Millennium discs, they're gonna find a lot of frisbee golf stuff.
No, okay. Am I getting I think that's the name. Well, just do M-disc. That should narrow it down. Let's see what they call. I think that stands for Millennium disc.
That's it. Yeah. We'll put a link in the description.
You're right. Somebody's moved. Yeah, M-disc. Yeah, I'm thinking that might be the best. See, it's not good for like enormous backups, but you know, Blu-ray can hold a lot for things. But yeah, if you're talking like bigger games, then they're not, or video. Those are the two things that kind of balloon my usage.
Right. I mean, they are talking about the death of Blu-ray movies. Happen next.
Well, as long as they keep manufacturing the disc you can write to, that's less of a worry for me.
Right. So may I ask you, how do you handle it personally in perspective of preservation? I mean, do you have a collection of physical media, or do you buy your games at Steam or GOG, or are you still a gamer? How do you handle it
of course.
personally?
Yeah, I'm very much. In fact, my biggest problem as a gamer is just carving out time for it. There's so many games I want to play. Okay, yeah. So for backup, what I do is for just kind of short-term stuff, I have a mirror RAID array, essentially, where as soon as I write to one disk, it's writing to two essentially. Now, obviously, it doesn't protect you against everything, but it's kind of like a short-term paranoia thing. Like if I'm editing a video project where I'm making a lot of changes and stuff, I'm always saving to that because I figure anything short of really advanced virus or maybe getting hit by lightning or something, it's probably going to be safe-ish, for short term. Now, for longer term, what I'm doing is I'm copying to redundant hard drives. So I have a bunch of external hard drives, and whenever I want to back it up long term, I'm covering to two at a time. So if I were to lose one, then the other should hopefully have everything. And then for like the real paranoid stuff, then I just don't even want to fathom losing. That's what I've been using the Millennium disk for more recently. But again, it's about $5 American dollars a disk as I got them. So I kind of saved that for like kind of my past video projects and things like that. They're kind of irreplaceable. I got a deal on some cloud storage where I got access to, I think it's 1 terabyte for a lifetime subscription deal. It was like for $80, but who knows how long that company will remain up. But it's been lasting a few years. So.
That's another topic. Lifetime.
I haven't been putting too much on there. Really, I haven't put anything on there that I'm not kind of prepared to lose, but I probably should do that in case there's something like a fire or something. I'm open to suggestions for better long-term storage, but like I'm sort of in between wanting to do something versus full-on paranoid. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure people can escalate it. For games, yeah, I mean, again, ever since I moved to Poland, that kind of broke me from like having to depend too much on physical. Plus, if you're a PC gamer, your options have been taken from you anyway for a whole bunch of titles.
Right.
So you kind of had to shift. I mean, I have no problem with digital. I just like being able to back it up in some capacity. If it's not a really popular game, like if it's a really popular game that I'm not too worried about being able to find a copy sometime down the line. If there was something, well, like you mentioned, like Need for Speed Shift. If I got kind of screwed on that, Need for Speed is a well-known series. Somebody's gonna have that backed up somewhere,
Right.
Mostly though, one of the Need for Speed games, the Need for Speed, or 2015, that one requires connection to a public server. It has a full single-player campaign. Doesn't matter, As far as I know, if the server goes down on that, every single copy is going to be unplayable. So that's why I've been so adamant about this, because I want to stop it before this problem gets worse,
Right.
Right. I mean, right now it's, well, okay, to get back to your question, yeah, with Steam and GOG, all things being equal, I prefer the GOG copy, but there's a whole ton of games that aren't on there. Also, I'm usually only buying games when there's like a major sale, and I just kind of queue up things, and then I look at like how much they've dropped in price, and it's kind of rare I'm playing any game newer than like 2 years old, actually.
Right.
Because it's for two reasons. One, that gives a chance for the prices to fall, and then two, the industry's practically trained me to wait, because if you're waiting 2 years, that game might have received a bunch of patches, so that's a nicer and more stable experience, and might have more features or something like that. Whereas if you buy it brand new, it can just be a late beta basically for what you're buying. So
Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh man, oh yeah, I only played that. Jeez, was it I think last year was when I finally got around to playing it, because they kept releasing these patches. So I was totally looking forward to it, but I just saw all these bug fixes. I'm just thinking, it's just going to be better if I wait,
Or No Man's Sky, which actually is around since 9 years and still gets content updates.
Oh yeah, all the
wild.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's a little different though, because that one's kind of both, where it was kind of a mess when it launched, and it's the kind that just that has this model where they keep adding to it, because some
Right.
games.
But it was not a mess at launch because of bugs, but because the PR person promised much more than the game was capable of. That's actually a different reason.
Yeah, I saw like this contest where like they're talking about like easy fixes for games, and what they did for that one was they changed the price to $30 and put early access. was the fix for No Man's Sky.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so I don't know, AJ, if you have something left. I think we got it covered.
I would just say, where can people go to follow along with what you're doing and
well, the Stop Killing Games stuff is winding down, but that stopkillinggames.com for that. For my videos, which I'm trying to get away from the Stop Killing Games stuff when I can, and get back more to like the fun game coverage stuff. My channel is Accursed Farms, or if you've heard of Freeman's Mind, that's probably the most famous thing I've done.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. As I said, I enjoyed your YouTube journey. I actually followed it as well.
Well, I want to get back to the more of the fun stuff and less of the legal stuff and political stuff. I haven't enjoyed that. It's just...
Yeah, right. I hope you enjoyed talking to us about it anyway.
Oh, sure. In fact, I was wondering, are you guys normally covering like a lot of Commodore 64 stuff, or
not really?
Not only. No.
Yeah.
We are actually covering all kinds of stuff. I mean, we also had, when it comes to preservation, we also spoke to iFixit and that stuff, or Martina Postma, who came up with the concept of repair cafes. So
it started off C64 and quickly went off on a tangent.
Exactly. So we talked to all kinds of people, and
I just want that clarification at ScumVM. Is he just against abandonware as a concept, or against supporting it? That's a difference,
Well, I would have to go watch the episode again.
Oh, okay. That's a good promotion for your promotion for your past episode. Then, I'll check that out.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be weird if he's against it conceptually.
Well, I guess it has to do with the fight he had with Disney, because they were like, you are not allowed to
but then
reverse engineer.
Yeah, you're not allowed to reverse engineer, but then they turned around and used ScumVM.
Exactly. Nowadays they're using ScumVM themselves.
Without asking them. They didn't ask them. They just used it.
Well, do they even need to ask if it's under a certain license? Or...
Well, it is under a certain license, yeah. The license agreement says you have to mention ScumVM being used when you publish a game that is relying on the engine, and they didn't do that.
Okay, well then, that is a problem.
I think
there have been more egregious cases than that in the past, where they took, like, sometimes they took an actual pirate group's crack for the game and then released that as the official thing.
That's what Nintendo did in their NES Mini.
Yeah.
Didn't PlayStation do that too for Sony?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they took just somebody else's emulator and then. Yeah.
AJ, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, I think that Disney, their argument about it was that because ScumVM was designed off of their code, designed to use their stuff, they therefore can use the ScumVM because it's based on their stuff, which is circular reasoning, but I think that's how they got away with it.
Yeah, though, I'm not sure if the law, but... Yeah. Maybe they didn't have... They got away with that probably because the people who made the emulator aren't going to take them to court and don't have deep pockets to fund that. I think if you actually went down that path, that wouldn't hold up.
Right.
But unless they stole... Well, the thing I keep thinking of Disney buying Lucasfilms or LucasArts is I like it okay, but I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. But around that time, there was that game, what was it, like 1313? that I saw the trailer for. I was thinking, oh, wow, this looks pretty interesting. I hadn't heard anything. I might want to play this one. And then Disney buys them and kills it. So,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
That's another thing. Right. Yeah.
So it's like one of the few Star Wars stuff things I am quite interested in. It's like, yeah, we're not gonna continue that.
Yeah, I mean, Disney has a weird approach on things when it comes to video games. That's quite weird. I mean, for example, since 2017 here in Germany, video games are allowed to have the swastika symbol, which wasn't allowed before
the Blood
2017.
Rain.
Exactly.
Yeah, the old one. They replaced it with like the European copy replaced it with this kind of this
Exactly.
You know,
yeah,
symbol
exactly. So that law changed. So since 2017, it may contain all those World War II symbols, right? No issue. But for the Indiana Jones game from 1987, if I'm not mistaken, so very early EGA PC game, it is region locked on Steam.
Wow.
So they never removed the region lock. It just says this item's not available in your country, but Disney is selling it for $5 over Amazon Germany. So you
that
have
sounds like the sort of thing. If somebody was really dedicated on it, they could probably win legally against them, but it would take a lot of effort. Yeah.
But I wonder why going the complex way of selling it as a publisher over Amazon Germany rather than removing the region lock because the law in Germany changed on Steam, make it easier for everybody. It's weird. You know?
I think it's the sort of thing where in a lot of giant corporations, there's an expression, the left hand isn't talking to the right, where it's so big, nobody even knows everything everybody else is doing, so that it can kind of get, one manager a few years ago said, okay, it's region lock, we can never change that. And then even though that new information comes out, that never makes its way to the right department, so that the change never happens, is what I would guess is going on.
But because they still want to sell it to Germans, they sell it over Amazon Germany. So.
Yeah, well, I remember in Germany, was it Carmageddon was one where they...
Exactly.
Yeah, and like in the UK, they had the sensor and where they had zombies instead of pedestrians. I think in Germany they had to have robots instead of the pedestrians that the cars could run over.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's weird thing. I see we could talk about this for hours. All right. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Well, thank you for sitting with us, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks. And keep in touch. I will let you know when we release this. Probably at the end of August, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Right. Awesome.
No hurry.
No worry.
I'm patient.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Have a good time.
Yes, indeed.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you.